Hello and welcome to, well, the HMCS Haida comment response video. The Haida and Tribals. This was a video I put out on Christmas Day, and it's kind of intrigued to see what the comments were going to be from people. And saving the comment response video to go out on the 19th of June, when I will be... Well, let's see, where will I be on the 19th of June? The 19th of June, thanks to, you should find a link down below, the Australia trip, I will be hopefully aboard HMAS Vampire. Yeah, Monday the 19th of June. I'm hoping to be aboard HMAS Vampire, having a look around her. Which seems rather appropriate. It does seem rather appropriate to be spending the day aboard her. And I spent last year the day aboard HMCS Haida. Thank you very much again for all your support, which has made the trip possible. Made the trip possible to see Haida, and has made the trip possible this year to see Vampire. Thank you for your support of Shipshape. Thank you for those people who are still supporting Shipshape. All the money is very much appreciated and is going into it. Trust me, there are a lot of expenses in doing this kind of filming and doing this kind of history, and there really isn't any support out there other than what you are providing. So thank you. Without you, it really wouldn't be possible. I don't know. I sit there and go, it should possibly be possible, but no. Alright, so let's go through the comments. Found us on a UFO. So happy we've received Haida? Yes. Honestly, I would love to have saved at least another tribal. I think, myself, I would like to save one in Australia, one in the UK, and, well, two in the UK at least, probably, I would have hoped, and one in Canada. I think that would have been fair for the class and would have been proportionate for them. The trouble is there would then have been a fight over which two you saved in the UK and which one you saved in Australia. And as we see with Haida, the story of her being saved is one of national endeavour. And I'm glad. And I said the two I'd have saved in the UK, well, as much as I love Tata, and I do love the story of Asante. I think, in many ways, I think Asante, the fact that she survived, she should probably have gone to Africa. She should have probably gone back to the Gold Coast and be there. I think the two which should have been preserved for the UK are Eskimo and Nubian. Because with those two ships, you couldn't have been in more battles. An Eskimo literally lost her bow multiple times. You know, losing your bow once is going above and beyond for a ship. Losing your bow so often it becomes a meme is... that's something. But no, we have got Haida, and for that I am eternally grateful. And as you saw in the video for this, I did get a bit, a touch. I wouldn't say, I still don't think I was crying. The people who say I was crying, I'm sure I wasn't. I don't cry. But, yeah, I think the emotion did come strongly that day. Thank you, CGN90, and for saying thank you, got to achieve your dream. It was amazing. It was... And I can barely believe that only a year later I'm going out to see HMAS Vampire, and it just trying to make it compute in my head. My brain is just not getting there. I would love a battle class to still be around the world, but there isn't. There just doesn't seem to be, and unless it's hidden somewhere in a creek, somewhere in some either in Egypt or in Pakistan. They just don't seem to be anywhere. Steve Clarke, it's like meeting your heroes, but not being disappointed that they didn't meet your expectations. Exactly. They would not appreciate me saying it, but the closest I can describe it was like meeting Michael Clapp, the Commodore of Amphibious Task Group, Fox War, or Professor Andrew Lambert for the first time. Meeting your heroes is one thing. Meeting them and they turn out to be better than you imagined is different. Times that feeling by about 1,000, and that's what it was like, honestly. See, Clarke, back in my youth, in 1984, I was doing the 40th anniversary of D-Day game at the then newly opened Air and Space Museum in Manchester. Demonstration was Pegasus Bridge, and the museum had invited John Howard, yes, the real commander of the Ox at Bucks. He was quite happy to chat and stuff, and gave us his thoughts on our simulation. However, I was a little disappointed in him. It was all too clean. He was not willing to speculate on German capabilities in efforts to remove his small force from the bridge, and did not discuss what support he received from 4th Airborne situation, which was all too confusing to him. Now we would write that off to old age, but it was all too much bluff and bluster for me, and I was not the only one disappointed in his response. As I said, be careful if you meet one of your heroes. He may not be anything like Richard Todd. Yeah, Michael Clapp, though. Oh, good lord, that is a man above, and so is Julian Thompson. They are everything you think they're going to be. I mean, Julian Thompson, I swear you could still cut him open down the middle today and you would find Royal Marine stamped everywhere. And Michael Clapp, seriously, that is a man who should have been First Sea Lord. The Royal Navy would be very different if he had been, but he should have been. Professor Andrew Lambert, yeah, he's a superstar. Dan Freeman wasn't a hero, but was a good person before I met him. Now I met him and I work with him, and I know what he does in hospitals every day, and I know how hard he works. Yeah. The fact that he finds taking holidays quite so difficult and we have to drag him away on naval history trips to get him to take a mild break, and that he comes and works in helping us, is neither here nor there. It's the only way we can get him to actually take a break from doing the medicine side. Ambition, it was great to see you, and great to see you make it that Haida in Canada. Now on to Vampire in Australia, yeah. And I think it was great to see you as well. Duke of Pension. So, what's all this about tribalism? Tucson night. It's 8 PM in Germany. Kids are in bed. Wife talking on the phone. What's to do in my free time? Oh, look, Haida. I'm glad. I hope you enjoyed it, Teutonic Night. Wet Coaster. Missed the live stream. Still opening presents on the west coast of Canada. Always great to see Haida and Naval Reserve Unit I was a member of for 20 years. HMCS star. There are a lot of people dedicated to keep Haida in top condition, improving it all the time. It's a must on any trip I can make back to my hometown. It really is a gorgeous, gorgeous ship, and I cannot overstate how nice and friendly and wonderful HMCS Star is. I already had a very high opinion of the RCN from years of meeting them, but after meeting them at HMCS Star and all the stuff that's gone there, seriously, they're just amazing, and I'm hoping we have similar connections with the Royal Australian Navy in Australia. I won't know till we get there, but if they are half as helpful as the RCN were, they will be amazing. I'm sure the RAN will be. They are lovely people as well. GCG, given the actual use of these ships as the shockwave of air ahead of the tip of spear, it's a miracle as many survived the war as they did. These ships are almost as used as a naval dirty dozen. To an extent, yeah. Oliver Mismark, great, I just started your book. Edit. One can get the feeling that you have a soft spot for troubles, but so do I. My soft spot also includes the JK class. Look, I like the JK class, I do, but I know some very good people have already written many books about them in recent years. The tribals got ignored, and that that motivated me a lot. Fafkoff, in the name of God, go. HMS Eskimo to her own bow. It's more used. It's not so much sacrifice as an offensive weapon. It's sacrifice as a shield. Okay, it's a shield. It's basically it's a case of we lost the bow again, but the ship's still fine. Fight on. Yeah. 20 trucks today. The sound of engines. I hope you stay away from the boilers. If you want to speak to the person next to you, it might be best to grab them by the shoulder and yell their area. Land-based boilers are not much better, or I go to. Hand signals usually work well. The late Marg, who looks after the boilers on Haida, fantastic. On Canant, we pronounce it Athabascan in Canada and Iroquois. Also, Huron. Thank you. Huron. the rather appropriate deck came there. It's rather interesting, that one, because the Royal Navy's advice to pronouncing it at the time, which I read when I was working, was Hurun, and you're saying Hurun. That intrigues me. You see, one of the things I do sometimes find is I tend to go by the guides which I was using. This caused me to call the Ashanti, and after talking to the Ashanti people, they call themselves the Asante. But then you go and read the Royal Navy's guide at the time, it's the Ashanti, and you sit there and go, well, which one should I call it? Because the ship was called Asante, but the people are called Asante. And so you need to work it through. And I've had this discussion with people who are going, well, the tribe call themselves this, and they do. But the trouble is, the name given to the ship, especially in the British ones, less so in the Canadian ones, was very much a case of, this is our phonetic translation of what we hear you say. So you have to take that all through the 1920s. And also there's the fact that our tongue and pronunciation has actually changed since then. So how they're telling to people write a spell, and I will read it from their pronunciation, might be different than how they were actually pronouncing it. It's an interesting, fun one to do. I have to say, there's a great poem, which I did list in my book. I need a bigger belt. A little poem in the book, which actually, because of the rhythm of the rhyme of it, it actually tells you, it shows you a bit of how they're pronouncing the names. And that helps, I found. Once I found that rhyme, it did clean up a lot of my pronunciation issues and worries over the tribal class. Moncash, oh wow, a year after your book, what an anniversary. Brilliant work, thanks for this. Thank you. Brian, if the tribals word are good enough, I'll be very afraid of the best. I visited HMS Vampire a few years ago. If you can, you must see the Fleet Air Museum. Yes, it's on the list. It's a 2-hour drive from Sydney. We have to drive down the M1. You have no idea what 4 British blokes are doing with the concept of having to drive down the M1 along the coast. We are probably going to be taking photos the entire way going, so you're on the M1 today? So are we! Look at our view versus yours. But, yeah. Also, New Zealand Navy Museum in Auckland is small, but a nice place to look and lunch. New Zealand Navy Museum in Auckland is something we will want to get to at some point. We're not getting New Zealand this time. We've managed to get to Australia. I think we have an idea of how we need to approach the fundraising in future, and we've learned a lot of lessons with this trip. It's also proved, in some ways, cheaper than we expected. In some ways, more expensive than we expected. And in some ways, we're going to have to sort of look at things and go, well, do we need to somehow change some of the funding organisation, or do we leave it as we are doing, and how do we approach this in the future? It's going to be something interesting we're going to sit down and have a talk about probably in July, August, before we start putting together the promotions for next year's one. Because there will be a next year's one. As long as we, don't murder each other or anything on the trip, and I doubt we will. Nicest way, we all just sit there talking naval history. We occasionally have arguments over whether or not Warspite was the greatest battleship of all time, or the greatest battleship of all eternity, but that's not really much of a debate, really. It's nothing that anyone's going to get harmed over. That's Mitchell. Sometimes you do not know what you have until it's gone. True, and I would say this is one of the reasons why we are doing these tours. We are doing these tours to highlight this stuff. There are, everyone sort of goes, well, are you really famous enough or anything like that? That's not the point. It's if everyone who can highlight it, no matter how large or how small the way, goes around highlighting it and makes sure it's well known, it makes it far easier to make the case for preservation, and it makes it far more difficult for people to try and strip the funding off these things. And that's what you need to do, because it's awareness. It's all about awareness. It's all about learning learning from the history, but also learning what history is around you so you can preserve it and learn from it, and future generations can learn from it. B-99 product. Beautiful ship. It was. It is. John Sykes. When you look into the boiler through the plexiglass portholes, I half expect the Ryan Shimatsky to be inside there waving back at you. We were expecting to have some random visits. We didn't, but we were. Jack Ray, thank you. Just brightened my crystal day. I really liked the bridge picture and video footage. Glad you enjoyed it. Kai Anderson. The heavy book is great. I love it. Thank you. I hope lots of people buy it, especially now they're producing a second edition. Jack Ray, what does the position of Stoker involve in oil-filled ships? This is compared to coal-fired ships. Basically, Stoker is still in charge of maintaining all the boilers. So, yes, they are watching the feed of oil into there, making sure the right amount of oil is going into the burners at the right pace, the right density. They're making sure you're getting everything out at the most efficient steam production as possible, but also they are monitoring all the water flow. All the things that go into making that boiler work come under the title of Stoker. So, and also maintenance of all those pipes and all those engines. They are just amazing. Lance, I did like the video. I would like to see more of the crew space. Would like to see HMS Diana if you go to Australia. She's on the list. We will have Brisbane on the list. I had some fun with some emails. I think I might have mixed up one of the emails from one of the emails to Brisbane with one of the emails to someone else, but we'll leave that to one side. Lufcop, the subscribed patron need to pool resources next year and 3D print a limited scale tribal glass destroyer replica as a Christmas present from us. If the cost becomes an issue, we can always model HMS Esco post Narvik. Win-win. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Oh, I'd love a 3D 3D tribal class. Yes, this lady and this lady both very hard working. This one sadly got sunk. But in her time, she did scare off an entire Italian battleship solo, so you know. Well, to be on her in her defense, and in defense of the two other destroyers, she was pumping out so much smoke they couldn't see the Italian battleship and couldn't do anything, and she was firing everything at the Italian battleship, including baked beans, which I still preserve was a form of psychological warfare, because if you're on an Italian ship and baked beans explode over you, that is going to cause you psychological damage. It just, what is this? Is it tomato sauce? This isn't tomato sauce. I can imagine them running around going, "What are they firing at us? This is terrible." Of course, the real threat is the fact that torpedoes and her getting closer. But you know, she'd run out of torpedoes by that point, so fire the baked beans. Dan Freeman, I would say I'm about average height, roughly 5'10". You're a little bit taller than that. Nashransky, HMS Cossack, aka the XO of tribals taking a lead whenever the leader needs a bit of break. Edit. The question should be, where has an Eskimo lost their bow? Edit 2. The tribal captains experience a similar form like dog owners. Dog owners become like their dogs. Tribal captains become like their ships. Yes. James Gunn, if you need photos of Haida in dry dock, contact me. JG. Yes, please. Fight for a Global First Amendment. Dr. Clarke, where is the best place to purchase your book, Troubles, Battles and Darings? Where do you have the large percentage of money? Basically, I get the same from everyone. Pen and Sword or USANO websites, depending on which country you're in. The Amazon link below, the video in the description also works, and that has the benefit of allowing reviews, which tend to help with sales as well. That was fun. Standing on top of beam out on HMCS Haida. And what you don't see is that there is a poor Shana, who was lady in charge of looking after it and looking after us while we were there, basically down below going, "Who gave you permission to get up there? What are you doing?" Glenn, Stuart, coming along with us, being abducted for the day of the trip to, I think that's going to the USS Sutherland. Yes, you can see Gareth looks very cool there. And Drax also wearing his glasses. So there's glasses, there's two baseball caps, and there's Glenn in the middle going, "What's happened to me? I've been abducted. Help. Help." It's a sensible one. Sushi, but Dr. Clarke, maybe the wrong way to give phrases, but given the inflation of ship sizes in the Dreadnought era, are the Tribals basically the size firepower equivalent that the Fisher's pre-World War I RM would have felt ideal for a scout cruiser or proportionally a Napoleonic era Razé frigate? Pretty much. They're not far off it. B-1900 pilot. Destroyers and their crews from all navies in World War II paid a heavy price. They were. They were the majors of all work, and they were also expected to be the front line. And they were the front line. JDP-19. Excellent stuff, Toxic. Must admit, I jumped through to the actual Haida parts mostly, but the history per ship was fascinating too. That engine room, though, wow. I work on Belfast, and I thought her forward boiler engine rooms were cramped. I must go take a gander at Cavalier again now COVID is mostly over, and hopefully engineering space are open this time. I hope so too. Someday I want to try and film them, but it's getting in there. JJ McLeod's. She's a sexy ship. Maybe you need to put her props back on and take her for a world tour. Just stop into Nova Scotia and I'll join her. Yeah, that would be good. That would be good. I would love to get them to take on a world tour. I think actually HMCS Vampire is probably the more likely to be able to take it on a world tour. I wouldn't mind doing that if I could. I doubt the Australians would allow me to. Mike Cubs, with regard to your additional ammunition storage theory for destroyers and destroyer escorts, the American destroyer escorts were often grouped around the carrier escort in hunter-killer groups. What is likely that the additional depth charges and torpedoes will be stored on the carrier escort? I've talked with several destroyer veterans who vehemently deny that depth charges and torpedoes were ever replenished on the way, but always replenished at naval stations, but I still can't shake the notion that more depth charges were employed between port visits than were normally carried. Punishing underway with those systems is pretty difficult, even depth charges. Possibly, but less likely than finding space to carry more, especially if using the ready use principle for weapons. There's also, I would say, that not all, whilst with the escort groups, etc., I doubt they would pass them across from an escort carrier, because she doesn't carry a massive amount either herself. However, saying that, and there's only so many you can carry. Saying that, I have heard stories, not torpedoes. Torpedoes are definitely never transition between ships at sea in World War II. It's very, very difficult to nigh on impossible to move something as heavy as a torpedo across between ships. I think, and when I say never, I think possibly some replenishment at sea of aircraft carriers for the air transportable torpedoes, but not the ship-based ones, which tend to be heavier. But seeing here, you can see some of the ready-use storage available. And some of the facilities they have. Well, let's put it this way. Some ships did stretch the ready-use storage to quite a large way, and still others, occasionally, if you were dealing with depth charges, for example, there are stories of them being lowered into boats, dropped back with crew aboard, and they get picked up, but you're not recovering those crew again. That's the important thing to remember. You're not recovering those crew. You're not stopping long enough to drop. You're basically dropping the boat in as you're moving, and you're picking up the boat as you're moving. So that's another problem on moving sort of depth charges, etc. But they would have liked to, trust me. They looked into it, but they didn't manage to. Sean McIntosh, thank you. Wonderful video, and thank you. May I offer a minor pronunciation pointer? Afabaskan is pronounced by a Canadian. It says Afabaskan. Afabaskan. Thank you. Dave Brennan. A lot of love has been spent on this ship, thanks to the insight into it. As electrician, mechanical, AC engineer, well-dressed cables, pipework and conduits are pleasing to my jaded eye. I know, and frankly, nicest way, you muck those engines up. Good Lord help you. Gavin Emerson, you've motivated me to pay a return visit to Haida. My last time was when she was birthed in Ontario Place in Toronto. Cool. She's well looked after where she is. I hope she stays there for many years. Richard, I think it is Australia where they have the ships with trees and stuff growing all over them. Think Homebush Bay in Sydney. There's a few websites that talk about ships that are doing this. I want to be a garden thing. I'd like to see it, but no funds, so I read and watch videos. Well, Richard, I hope you A, someday get to go yourself, and B, if we can find them, we'll go and look at them. We have plans of doing all these things if we can find them. We're in lots of talks with a lot of locals, and they will help. Hopefully they will help us. Professor, do the tribals allow USS Barb into the train club? More than likely, because the train club is an open fraternity. I think HMS Unicorn is possibly a member as well. Look, she had 4-inch guns. In the nicest way, you do not give a Royal Navy aircraft carrier of any type. And remember, this is a vessel which is about forward aviation support. Guns. They will use them. For smart. Dr. Clarke, I live in Alaska and I know Athabaskan natives. I've never heard any pronounce Athabaskan the way you do. I usually just listen to your content like a podcast while I work, but I couldn't help but leave a comment this time. Thank you. P.S. Edit. Looks like I wasn't alone in hearing this. Yes, I know, but the thing is, I was pronouncing it as the Royal Navy style guide from 1944, and I pronounced it and spelled and had it phonetically put in it. So, but I haven't read that in a while. But I will go and find that archive document. It might be interesting to do a video about that sometime and just go, this is how the Royal Navy was pronouncing it. I was telling their people to pronounce them in 1944. This is how you say, modern people say we pronounce them, and, you know, look at the difference. That could be it. Athabaskan. Athabaskan. Damon Uruk. My granddad was on HMS Sikh, Ernest Houghton, and my nan's brother was on HMS Dido. Died when B turret was hit. Granddad was the last person to see John alive in Malta before the activation of Crete, when HMS Dido was hit. God bless him. John Johnson was 18 years old, both from Sittingbourne and Kent. Love your channel. Thank you. Granddad said they did torpedo Bismarck, got within 2,000 yards. The thing is, I wouldn't be surprised if they did hit Bismarck. I'm just not surprised. I'm also... Bismarck might have been sufficiently low enough in the water that they basically just were hitting the armoured belt. I'm not sure. But I think they did. I think they did get close enough. The tribal crews definitely were getting as close as they dared at that night. And some say they got within 2,000 yards. Vian's own account says we got within 2,000 yards. And from the way it's phrased, it says within, underlined, 3 times 2,000 yards. That suggests to me more like 1,800, possibly less. At that point, that's almost point-blank range for a torpedo shot. Now, it is nighttime, so they might miss, but that's going to be terribly annoying for the Bismarck crew. In a position to maneuver. So there is always that possibility, and this is something which it's worthwhile considering historically, is what happens if Bismarck gets sunk in a night by Royal Navy destroyers, and so by the time it's morning there's no point the battleships interfering because the destroyers have sunk them. I was going to tell the destroyer crews off. You sunk the Bismarck. Terrible. We were supposed to be waiting for the battleships. No. It's like... it comes very, very close. If the honest thing is, if you look at the timings of them, if Grass Bay had spent another hour, a couple of hours heading north, or the tribals had spent another couple of hours heading south, they would have overlapped off the coast of Africa. In which case, the Grass Bay would have run into 8 tribal-class destroyers. Now, I'm not saying the tribals get through completely intact, but that's 8 destroyers, 40 torpedoes, that's 64 4.7-inch guns, that's 8 different smoke screens as they're coming into attack, in daylight, with radar, and everything else to attack with... I don't see a scenario where the Grass Bay gets out of that one alive. She can do a maximum 28 knots. A tribal can outpace that with her eyes closed. So she's dealing with a full flotilla attack of destroyers on her. And that changes history. The battle, instead of it being the Battle of River Plate being the first big battle of World War II and setting the tone for it, the cruiser action, it would be destroyers. Destroyers sink the Grass Bay. And she gets sunk in the Indian Ocean. And the ripples effect that would have been really interesting. Anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. This was supposed to be 20 minutes long. All these videos are supposed to be 20 minutes long. And it's roughly 30 minutes long. Yeah, well. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and thank you again for all your support. Take care. And as said, when this comes out, we will be in Sydney, which is a lot of fun. I think I'm in Sydney till about, well, we are in Sydney from the. Let me just check the dates, he says, because he wants to be absolutely sure. We are in Sydney from the 16th to the 21st. So, please. We'll mainly be going around the Fleet Air Arm Museum on the first day, and then we'll be around Sydney, wandering around the various memorials in Sydney, the Naval Museum, all those things. So, please, feel free to come say hi and chat us up. We're happy to say hi and chat away. Take care.